Hello everyone, my name is Rachel Watson and I'm a teacher with Tailored English Online. We offer online English lessons using Skype. Today I'm going to tell you about 10 things I like about Moscow. In no particular order. Why Moscow? Because currently I have a lot of students living in Moscow and I've had the opportunity now to visit twice. And I thought I would just share some of the wonderful things about Moscow and encourage those of you that haven't been there to go visit. So first thing is very efficient transportation. I mean, Moscow is a huge city, and so transportation is something that matters a lot. And the metro system there is just amazing. The trains come so often that actually they have these clocks inside the stations, and it's not like, counting down to the next train like you might see in London. Instead, there's a kind of like a stopwatch that counts up to the next train, because you can be confident that if you come down onto the platform and there's already a minute or two on the clock, well then there's going to be a train anytime now. Okay, so second thing, also related to the metro, is the gorgeous metro stations. You've probably heard about this, but it's just amazing. So many of the stations are, I don't know, just grandiose. They're beautiful the way that, historic aristocratic homes or museum lobbies and galleries are beautiful. So just going around the city, you have this wonderful experience of being surrounded by culture and art underground. Third thing, still related to the metro, because I've got that on the brain, is the convenience of shops and underpasses and everything with kiosks, so that while you're walking around avoiding the rain or the wind or the snow, Moscow has a lot of bad weather a lot of the year. So there's all these tunnels and shops in the tunnels and in the underground areas. So you can get everything from groceries and coffee to clothes and shoes, gifts. You basically have no reason to go outside at all. Occasionally, there are beautiful days in Moscow. I went this past summer and was blessed with some sunny days. So the fourth thing that I love about Moscow are the huge parks. There's quite a number of them around the city. Each one has a little bit of a different flavor. But I have enjoyed picnics in the park and running by the river in a different park. Even on a gray day, I've walked through some other parks that have interesting historical aspects. Number 5, speaking of beauty, I love the domes on Orthodox cathedrals. I love how, when you're walking around town, suddenly peeking over one building or through the trees, whatever, you can see these just absolutely gorgeous structures. I think when I was small, I really didn't know very much about Russia, but I always wanted to visit Moscow and St. Petersburg to see these, beautiful spiraling domes on the skyline. Number 6, lots of interesting museums. I'm someone who is interested in history. A hidden gem that I was introduced to by one of my students is the Romanov House, which has kind of, like a life-size diorama you can walk through, and they have scenes of life before the Kremlin. So it's a house that has, the setup with furniture and documents and art and whatever normal objects you would see in those kinds of rooms. You can expect, if you are not Russian, to pay more than Russians do, which I feel like that's fair, actually. Number 7, the varied nightlife of Moscow. I didn't go out that much in my couple of visits, but the places that I did go to were super interesting. I went to a bar that had like writing all over the place, and we realized that there were a couple of signs that were written using the Cyrillic alphabet, but to phonetically spell out words in English. So that was very entertaining. And I went to the Plastine Cafe. I mean, it's basically the Play-Doh Cafe, but Play-Doh is a brand name, right? So they had to call it something else. But you go in and there are these blocks of, basically Play-Doh at your table, and you can use the different colors that you have to create these little, whatever, decorations, ornaments, and then you stick them onto basically any surface of the cafe, on the lamps, the walls, the tops of benches, and the cafe's been around long enough that basically you're just layering on top of other people's decorations at this point. So that's a lot of fun, kind of like a return to childhood. You do it with your friends and, make your mark on the place. So yeah, I also was lucky enough, my first time to Moscow, I was there in October, and there was a festival called the Circle of Lights. The festival itself was amazing. They do these customized artistic projections on the facades of famous buildings. And there are different kind of like mini movies that take you through these scenes. And I went to one that was in front of the Bolshoi Theater. Number 8, fashion. And also shopping. People just dress so well, especially ladies. And I just enjoyed being in the metro or walking down the street and being like, wow, people are so put together, with the care that they take with their hair and their dress, and the options that exist for shopping reflect that. I know a lot of my students used to wait until they went to Italy or France or whatever to buy, particularly fashionable clothing. But I found the offerings even within Moscow, especially in Moscow City, to be, very competitive. Number 9, good food. Yes, I am someone who I don't like cabbage, so I was a little bit concerned when I went to Moscow because I was like, I think there's a lot of cabbage in Russian food. But in fact, there is a huge variety of Russian food because there are so many different nations that make up Russia. So I enjoyed discovering a bunch of cuisines that I had never been exposed to before. Also, there's a hot pressed juice called mors that I love. They have flavors that you wouldn't necessarily think of, at least in the United States, like something that in English we call sea buckthorn, which is the ugliest name for this delicious thing. Time for number 10. My last favorite thing about Moscow is the people. I guess if you're not used to cities, I can see how Moscow would be a bit intimidating. It is true that people are not like, I don't know, trying to talk to strangers in a friendly way necessarily. But for me, I'm from New York, and Moscow felt really comfortable in terms of the day-to-day urban interactions. But then the people that I got to actually spend some time with, even people that didn't know me, but just like, I was introduced to them because I did an English corner at their work, or because they're a friend of a student, or someone's husband, whatever, all these interactions that I had, I felt like the people I spoke to were genuinely interested. The fact that I was American didn't create a barrier in those conversations. And, people were definitely out there impressing me with their language skills. Very forgiving of the fact that I memorized, maybe 30 Russian phrases and made do the rest of the time with English or the help of someone who's bilingual. So yeah, I would say if you're going to Moscow and you're just intimidated by people who are not smiling in the street or whatever, just, give them a chance, be polite, and then when you actually get to interact with them socially, you'll get to see the warmer side. So there you go. Those are the 10 things that I love about Moscow. If you are in Moscow, I hope that you will share this video from an American perspective. If you haven't been to Moscow before, you should definitely go. Thanks so much for listening and watching, guys. Stay tuned for our next video.